the gym owner happened to be a Muslim. He started suggesting things like, hey, let's do something a little different than the same old gym routine. Let's go out for a walk. Then he started writing little shairies for me. He would comfort me with a hug or hold my hand. I did succumb to that, and I thought, okay, so I started reading about Islam. He took me to the mosque on some of my visits, and he taught me how to pray. And we talked about, what it would mean. And he said, well, I'm Muslim, and I have the ability to take another wife and to take care of another person. So why are you keeping this a secret from your family? And he was like, well, I really, can't devastate my wife. I have a duty to her, and this is what Allah is guiding me. This is the best thing to do. We can't really finalize anything unless you convert. I actually did read the Kalma and the Shahada. I learned how to do all the namazes, the 5 ones. It is an extremely powerful brainwashing mechanism. So both my friend and my brother provided me or brought me back to the rational way of thinking and to question. I truly believe it was Ma Durga who extricated me and gave me the strength.
Hello, this is Dr. Dilip Amin. Over the last 19 years, I have guided some 1,300 youths in interfaith love relationships and have summarized in some 5 books. Today, I have a special guest, a victim of Hindu-Muslim love relationship, where this girl at her low point has been lured into love, converted to Islam, was asked to be his second wife. So he's a gymnasium teacher, and it is important because this girl is otherwise very smart and intelligent girl. Even though she fall in trap, good news is that her family help her get out of this trap. So without any delay, Rinku, welcome to Interfaith Shadi.
Thank you, Dilipji, for having me and allowing me to share my story.
It's really daring of you to come out and tell these stories. There may be 10 times more or 100 times more victims who do not want to go out and tell to people. So thank you very much. I know you want to help all those innocent girls who get in such trap. So thank you for that. So to start, can you summarize your life experience or what you want to tell, please?
Sure. So it's first, it's taken me a while to get comfortable in telling my story because, and I want to share with all the women and maybe even men who are kind of guided. I don't want to use any negative terms. Guided into a relationship that is not in line with who they are as a person and what they believe in terms of spirituality, simply because they have misconceptions and are vulnerable, and also to share with them that they do not need to be afraid or ashamed if they have fallen into such a situation, and they can extricate themselves, and they should be proud of being able to see the reality when they do find that courage. So that's really the purpose of me trying to share my story. So I grew up in India, and had a very happy child life with my parents and my brother. We were involved in all the festivities. We had different pujas like Saraswati Puja at our home, and we were the multicultural, spiritual family, but not overtly religious. So we, loved what our culture was. We cherished and we participated in them, but we never really um, uh, actively felt like we ever needed to defend it or propagate it or talk about it even outside our immediate circles. So that would be, I guess, many Indian families are like that. They enjoy their pujas, their festivities. They also take for granted that the pluralistic nature of Hinduism actually permeates across the Indian society, and everybody thinks like that. So that sets the background of my mind frame growing up. Um, I did travel to England for higher studies and later settled there. My children were born there. I met my spouse, who now, of course, I've been divorced for several years, in India during my college studies, but we got married in England. We came back for a reception in India, and we did do the 7 rounds around the fire and those type of ceremonies and rituals. But the actual registration first happened in England, and we had a decent life. Both of us were working. We had been able to save up to buy a home. And of course, the birth of my children was the high point of the married life, but it also hid a lot of underlying tensions and complications within the relationship. It was a relationship because we had studied together in college. It was a relationship that also had elements of competition because our line of work was the same. Our families were very equally balanced socially, so there was a sense of competition also from the family side. These are dynamics that I think later in my life, when I had the luxury of being free from both relationships, that I was able to reflect on. And I just wanted to point these out because I feel like these are dynamics that can set the stage for anyone to be vulnerable, even when they are in a married relationship. So, as I mentioned, because of the continuous kind of competition, who's better as a parent, who's better as a spouse, who's better at their work, the relationship started having friction points quite a bit. And I felt myself constantly compromising, lowering myself to not offend my spouse at that time so that he felt better about himself. So I was kind of feeding into his insecurities while doing that. But that made me very less confident on myself as a person. And I wasn't fully able to be there for my children as well sometimes because it leads to a kind of depression. And two of the mechanisms that I kind of fell into because of that was overeating and oversleeping, which means I put on a lot of weight. So when that happens, people know you lose energy, you lose vitality, and it is very hard to maintain your work-life balance and be there for your family when you get into that kind of a space. So For some reason, both of us thought that maybe going back to India would help because Indian society is more conducive to family raising. People are not that isolated. So he took a job in India. Unfortunately, it wasn't in our hometown, so we weren't very close to where the rest of our relatives were. But it was a new place and it was a growing city. And so we ended up in Hyderabad. And, you know, he got the job. I decided not to work because my kids were still very young and I did not want to leave them with an ayah or somebody that I didn't know. And I felt like this was an opportunity to be the present mom that I felt I wasn't able to do with a full-time career back in England. So we came back and things did not get better. Somehow they got worse because now the competition was who was spending more time with the children. It is what it is. I mean, that just was the tone of our marriage. And so my depression grew worse and I gained more weight. The only time I was happy was really when I was taking care of my kids. But a part of me felt like I needed to pull myself out of this depressive state and make something of myself and gain back my courage and my vivacious nature. So I decided to join a gym based on one of my friends' recommendation in Hyderabad. And the gym owner happened to be a Muslim. But he was very kind. He was very attentive towards all his clients. He sat down, listened to my background very attentively, took notes, what were my goals in terms of my weight and my family life balance. Very methodical approach, nothing to raise any red flags. And he had many, many women and men clients coming to the gym that were going through different stressful life situations, trying to get their life back on track. He had a very good reputation in society because he had helped so many people. So I was able to see results in the fact that I got more energy, I lost weight very quickly, I was coming back to my normal level of enthusiasm, the spark was back. And so I was starting to feel good about myself, and this showed, of course. Unfortunately, it didn't sit well with my spouse. He, I guess, felt threatened to see this change in me, so immediately he started attacking me that, I was having, relationships outside of marriage. I was not true. I was a bad mom. None of that was true at that time at all. But it definitely created a additional situation where I was pushed into seeking validation and appreciation from outside because I wasn't getting it from home, from the person that I had thought would be my life partner. So I mentioned this to the gym instructor, and his suggestion was, it's sometimes good for couples to come and work out together. And I thought that was a good suggestion. So I suggested to my spouse at that time that, okay, I won't go to the gym in the morning after you guys have all either gone to school or work. Let's do it in the evening. We'll go as a family. You and I will work out for half an hour, and that way we can, encourage each other in being healthier and build a relationship in that aspect. Unfortunately, my husband he went and talked, we had some sessions with the gym trainer, but my husband had already taken a huge dislike to this person because he had convinced himself that this person was corrupt and was out to destroy his marriage, and he decided not to accompany me anymore. But by that time, I felt I needed to keep on going because that was really the only place I was getting any sort of validation and I was seeing any results from my efforts at doing something. So I continued to go to the gym, and because all of this played out in front of the gym trainer, it was very obvious to him that I was in a vulnerable place. So he started suggesting things like, hey, let's do something a little different than the same old gym routine. Let's go out for a walk. And I'm like, oh, you know what? I haven't gone for a walk in a long time. Let's go out for a walk. So we would take pretty long walks in one of the parks. And I was like, wow, I didn't realize how much I like nature. And I like being in nature. And these walks are really therapeutic. So mentally, of course, subconsciously, there was a check mark against this person understands what I need as a soul and as a person. Then, as we confided, and his conversations were like, I want to help you in repairing your relationship with your spouse. So, what are some of the things that you like to do with him? And so I would say, we don't go out to coffee shops anymore. We don't go out to eat. He used to be very indulgent. We used to listen to music. So, he took all that information in, and he very expertly wove them into our regular interactions. So after the walk in the park, once a week, we started going to a coffee shop to talk. Sometimes he'd invite some of the other clients from the gym. Sometimes it would be a big group, but slowly it just turned out to be a one-on-one interaction. Then he brought some music CDs for me, suggesting, oh, have you listened to this and this? I think you'll like it. And of course, music was a very weak point for me. So then he started writing little shairies for me and asked, how do you like this? Do you think this is good? And I was flattered. I thought they were very nice. So obviously a part of me had softened towards this person. And I recognized that. And on very vulnerable days when I would come to the gym because of a particularly bad episode at home, because of yelling and screaming and those type of things, he would comfort me with a hug or hold my hand. So those had also kind of come into place as normal parts of a friendship.
Right. In India, he's hugging you, being a model.
Hug, like, putting a hand around the shoulder and patting it. But remember, this was in the gym, so there were other people there. So it wasn't like, and for me, having been in the outside world in England, to me, it didn't strike any chord to be worried about that. Now that I know how conservative the Muslim society is, of course that would be, because if you're married, they're not even supposed to look up at other women, right?
That's the Quran 24:30. They're supposed to lower their gaze, walk out of it.
Correct.
And whatever he's doing,
and it applies both to men and women, right? not really a practicing Muslim, right? But I didn't know all that. I hadn't read the Quran at that point. So I recognized certain vulnerabilities within myself, and I decided to be honest with my spouse. And I said, look, there's this weakness that I'm developing because of the divide that's between us, and we need to do something about it. And I don't feel staying in India is going to help. I think we need to extricate ourselves from this, go back to England. That's where my brother and his family is. That's where we kind of had a start at a happy life with our kids. So let's just do that. And for some reason, he did not accept that suggestion. He was like, well, no, you want to destroy our family, and you don't have the authority to make any decisions, so I'm going to do everything that you tell me not to do. That means we're not going back to England. I'm going to find, and your family, he told me, your family is a bad influence on you, so we're not going to back to England because you'll be close to your brother and his family. So we're going to go somewhere where nobody's going to bother us. And he decided to find a job in South Africa. And I'm like, why would I go to South Africa? I know no one there. Right now I'm at a low point in our lives, and it's not the safest place in the world. Our children weren't born there. The children were born in England. And I said, no, I am not going to go back to go to South Africa because this just popped in your mind. So we had a huge falling out. He started throwing things, breaking things, and that's when I'm like, I just need to get out of this city and find a safe place. So call my, in the middle of the night, he called my mom. All my relatives he could think of that was in the phone book, and said, oh, she's having affairs over here, so I need to get her to see a psychiatrist. And I'm listening to these phone calls going, none of these calls are going to save our marriage. In fact, you've just made everything worse. But I knew because he was in such a violent mood that one night that I needed to go somewhere safe. And so we got on the call with my mom, and my mom convinced him to bring the family back to our hometown. And so, and she said, oh, we will talk sense into her. And somehow that pacified him because he felt that he had conveyed that I was the person that was bonkers and needed counseling and needed psychiatric help. And I guess that assuaged his ego or whatever was in him. And immediately one night we bought tickets. Next morning we were out of there. So everything was as is in Hyderabad. We didn't pack anything except for some essentials and our clothing for the travel to back to the hometown. We went there, and he stayed at his parents' place. I stayed at my parents' place with the kids, and we were going back and forth. He was also going back and forth with his workplace at that time because his job was still there. And then he suddenly completely refused to give my passport, the kid's passport. And I had booked tickets back to England for all of us. And that's when he held on to the passports. And I said, you really can't do that, and you shouldn't do that. And so I tried to soften the stance a little bit, but I was only able to get the passport for myself and one of my younger child, and my older child was not allowed to stay with me overnight since then. But he had become very abusive and violent. Now, in this whole thing, the person back in Hyderabad was still, texting me, messaging me, are you okay? Where are you? I'm worried. I'm thinking about you. So all of these things also affecting me in the background. But there was a very bad situation where I had to take the decision to immediately buy tickets and depart for England with my little um, younger one, and leave the ticket for my older one and my spouse at that time to come and join us. And my aim was to go back to England and start looking for a job to provide for myself, because I knew the marriage wasn't going to last. That we were headed for a divorce, and I needed to sustain myself. However, because the messaging and the texting continued during this low point in my life when I was alone in England, trying to find a job, having some support from my brother's family, it provided me also some comfort, that constant messaging, the constant looking into how I was. And since I did have to go back to India to take care of certain personal matters, and I decided that I also wanted to see what was there in this relationship that I had kind of just left. And so I went back, met with him, and I said, what is it why have you kept up this, checking in on me, caring about me? And he said, I do care about you. I'm not going to lie. I have begun to care about you deeply, and I'm a very honest person, and there's no way I can hide this feeling, and it's important for me to let you know that I'm here for you. And at that time of vulnerability, Dilipji, is probably all I needed to hear to say, okay, I'm going to put more into this relationship. So as I was going through the divorce proceedings, I kept up contact with this person, and he taught me, he took me to the mosque on some of my visits, and he taught me how to pray, and we talked about, what it would mean. And he said, well, I'm Muslim, and I have the ability to take another wife and to take care of another person, and I feel I can provide that for you.
Oh my God.
And
In
Yes.
India, that's pretty sad that Muslims can have 4 wives and they can go out and lure other girls.
Sad.
Oh my, that's sad.
yes, they have no qualms about that. And even though I'm speaking from a personal perspective, Dilipji, I later realized that there is a lot of training that goes on within the Muslim society to justify the thought process, to train on how to have the difficult conversations around multiple marriages and how to rationalize it. Just think about that. When I am being abandoned by somebody who I thought was my friend and my life partner, another person is presenting himself as, I am putting my entire career and my reputation at risk, but I'm willing to take care of you and take you as a second, spouse, out of the goodness of my heart. So I did succumb to that, and I thought, okay, so I started reading about Islam, and yeah, they do allow it. And I started reading the Quran. I learned how to do all the namazes, the 5 ones, many rakas for each namaz, and I followed it diligently, even when I was in England. And for 1.5, 2 years, I followed all of this. But I also am a good reader, so I started reading the Quran on my own. And slowly I started asking questions. I said, when are you going to introduce me to your family? if this is the path we're taking, I would like for me to be formally introduced. And he said, well, we can't really finalize anything unless you convert.
Wow. He wants you to first, I mean, you have a love. What, first of all, if it is a true love, why he's bringing religion in? And why not he first introduce you to his wife? Why he wants you to convert? So, I mean, his main interest is to market or sell his religion first.
So I am glad that you pointed this out. I was not aware of that, right? To me, it sounded like an okay sort of request that maybe his family would be more open if they knew that I had already accepted their faith and there was sincerity on my part. That's how I rationalized it. I rationalized his request for me to convert. So I actually did read the Kalma and the Shahada that professes that there is only one God, no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet in front of a, I guess, a Maulvi or Imam or whoever does that sort of thing. So that was my initiation into it. But here's the
Wait, so
problem.
you already said the Sahadat oath, so you were converted to Islam. Okay.
Yeah. But here's the thing I need to mention, Dilipji. When we are brought up as pluralistic Hindus, we have a lot of misconceptions. One of the biggest misconceptions is that believing in the oneness of the Supreme is the same as believing in the oneness of Allah.
Yeah.
Huge misconception that we have.
But how about the Muhammad part?
Mhm.
How about
Yes.
the Muhammad part?
The other one is I had never read the Quran before, and to me, it when you look at the Abrahamic traditions of various prophets, it was like, okay, because in the Shahada itself, the word last or final isn't there. It just says, and Muhammad is his prophet. So that qualifier I didn't learn until I actually started studying the Quran. That it's the final prophet and there can be no other messenger after him. So for a rational mind, that is a huge conflict. That means Bhagwan, the Supreme, has placed limitations on themselves. Right? And why would an all-powerful supreme entity limit their powers of creation? That doesn't make any sense.
And did you know that you are not only accepting Islam, you are also giving up your Hinduism?
No.
That's a major problem. Hindus are pluralistic mindset.
Yes.
They think that I have 100 gods, I'm adding one more, no problem. Jesus bring him in, Muhammad bring him in. They don't
Yes.
realize that you are not adding a god, you are removing all your god. You are from a
Everything.
pluralistic mindset. You are being a supremacist, exclusivist mindset.
Absolutely. And now I want to go back. Remember when he was initially kind of gaining my confidence? He was writing shairies, giving me music, those type of things. Slowly he started to say, well, music is really not allowed in Islam.
He changed his tune now.
Yeah.
It was only to lure people in Islam.
Correct.
But once you are in,
how can music, because in Hinduism, music, dance, art, poetry, all of these are forms of worship. We worship Ma Saraswati in our house. So to hear something like that was absolutely mind-boggling. I'm like, no, that can't be right. But then in the Quran and in the Hadiths and the Sunnahs, it becomes very obvious that music is considered haram. Clapping is considered haram. Percussion instruments in particular are disliked. And then there's this whole concept of heaven and hell. When you read the description of hell in the Quran, and you find that there are billions of people that take joy in reading these verses where the unbeliever is cast into an eternal fire and they are made to suffer over and over again because their skin is peeled and replaced with a fresh layer of skin so that they feel the fire renewed every time. You have to wonder about such a being that in all verses says that being is all merciful but does not hesitate in damning souls to eternal suffering simply because they didn't recognize that particular being and the messenger. And that is a huge disconnect with Hinduism. Hinduism has no permanent hellfire like that, and definitely not the concept of hellfire in the Abrahamic faiths. Then there's the concept of heaven. And if you ask a follower of Islam the concept of heaven, you will find that it is described by sensual pleasures. There's nothing heavenly about heaven. It is only about indulgement in sensual pleasures, which is in absolute antithesis to the Hindu concept of liberation or closeness to God, which is emancipation from all your sensual pleasures and being one with the divine. So huge clashes. None of these things really are apparent to the lay Hindu unless they really read the Quran back and forth, read the translation of the Sunnahs and the Hadiths. Now, all of my exploration in depth was actually facilitated by a friend that I gained during my second round of stay in England, my new employment, and she was a devout Hindu. And I had, divulged all of my life story with her, shared her in confidence, and she had asked me, you're going back and forth, meeting this person. Do you know what you're getting out of this relationship? Because relationships are mutually respective, and they bring something of growth. Where is your growth in this relationship? And I started reflecting on that. And I found out I'm not growing as a spiritual being. I'm not growing as a mother. I was already a mother of 2 children, and any time that I was devoting over here, I was taking away from my children and my family, real family, and I was not growing as a wife or a spouse of anybody else because this person was kind of wishy-washy on this whole marriage and things like that. So I started having more questions in my mind, and I decided to ask him after I converted and I was following through with the namaz and everything that I'm converted, and according to the sunnahs and the hadiths, your prophet never kept a secret from his 13 wives. Whenever he had a new person come in to his life, there was a ceremony, and there was a formalization, and everybody knew. There was no secret. So why are you keeping this a secret from your family? And he was like, well, I really, can't devastate my my wife. I have a duty to her, and this is what Allah is guiding me. This is the best thing to do.
Wait, Muhammad was honest telling his never hide the secret, but now Allah is telling him something different to hide the secret for his wife.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Like, my responsibility to them is there, but once you become my wife, of course, I will show you the same. There will be no dearth in my ability to take care of you. And in your Quran, it says you should only marry if you can give equal time and equal attention to all your wives. How are you going to do that then? Without divulging, because if you're splitting time 50-50, isn't your wife going to know? And he had no answer for that. Then the second point of conflict came up when he started insisting about wearing the hijab. And I said, actually, it's not mandated in the Quran. There are some hadiths for it, and there are also some hadiths against it. Because I'm a very thorough reader, and I'm a good student. I was always a good student. So I try to read up as much as I can. And I said, and it's not even among the 5 pillars of Islam. So why is this insistence on wearing a hijab? And he had no answer for that either. So lots of contradiction, even when the Muslim soul appears confident that they are followers of unshakable truths and unshakable principles. When you start questioning them, there are no answers. There's no answer about the heaven or hell. And I also asked, what's in it for women in heaven? There was no answer because there is no guidance.
A good point. Everything 72 virgins. I mean, how about for women?
Everything is described with reference to men. There is no explicit description of what heaven will be like for a woman. And most of the Maulvis and Imams kind of make stuff up as they go. If you hear some of the sermons, they're absolutely ridiculous. So, unfortunate as that may be, that is the truth that I discovered for myself. Another important person, of course, was my sibling, my brother. And I used to argue with him, when he saw me practicing the namaz and everything and understood that I had accepted Islam at that point in time.
So you were practicing namaz even in UK on
Yes.
your own.
Yes.
So, I mean, Muslims can say that, well, it was your choice. By your choice, you accepted the Islam.
Sure.
Okay.
I'm not gonna argue that. I'm not gonna argue that. There was no one to force me there. But what I want people to understand, it is an extremely powerful brainwashing mechanism. And it is brainwashing. It does lay upon you an extreme sense of guilt should you choose to walk away and point out the deficiencies in the faith. My brother pointed out a very important fact. He said, look at not only the written words and verses, look at how they are imposed and practiced within society. And I think the discussion about the hijab was very exemplary of what is prescribed in the Quran versus how it's actually imposed in Islamic Sharia existence. So both my friend and my brother provided me or brought me back to the rational way of thinking and to question. And questioning is an absolute freedom that we have in the Hindu faith. No other faith has this ability to constantly question what existence is, what morality is, what spirituality is, what devotion is. And questioning and debate is a form of spiritual growth as well as religious liberation because it frees you from dogma. It frees you from superstition. Contrary to what a lot of people like to say about Hinduism, that it's rolled up in superstition and dogma, it isn't. If you truly follow the spirit of the texts. And now that I mentioned the word text, I think the biggest deficiency amongst Hindus by osmosis, which is what I call myself, that means we don't have any formal training in any of the texts. We have partial reading and partial understanding of important books, even such as the Bhagavad Gita. And this is what makes us weak and vulnerable. And when people come with an aura of confidence and challenge us, we're not equipped to have those discussions, and we fall for the confidence and bravado on the other side as a proof that their faith is somehow more real than ours.
I think you have made excellent point. That's exact point I have seen on and on. Hindus have no clue what their faith is. And when the other party comes out and tell that, look, I have so much perfect things, and they fall for it just like you. And Islam means submission. You have to completely submission.
Yes, yes. So that's pretty much my story. I want to make the point that you don't have to be poor or weak or stupid or out of a job to fall into this kind of a situation. It can happen to anyone at any point in life. I want people, both men and women, to know that there are folks in the Muslim society who honestly believe that every person they convert is another stepping stone for them to Jannah. And now that I mentioned the word Jannah, one of the things that was, that made me fall for this is he had said, in you, I see somebody who is deserving of Jannah. And that is why I'm making this effort.
So he knew that you are a Kafir, you're going to go to hell, and it's for your good. You Islam, so you deserve to go to heaven because you are so nice person. Otherwise, Mahatma Gandhi and all other Hindus, Kafirs will go to hell.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not only one person. That's fundamental beliefs.
Yeah.
Most people carry, if not all.
Yeah. And one of the things he says is directly from, I think, the hadiths, where when initially their prophet started preaching, there were a lot of doubters, wouldn't follow. And he used to say, what if even I am 1% chance that this is true and you end up not following what I'm saying and you've missed that 1% chance? Yeah. So they do have a lot of techniques in place to have the conversations, to sway the doubters. We don't. Because our goal is not to convert or sway people. Our goal is a personal and collective journey for dharma, which is very difficult to define.
So when you were in England and truly following namaz all those times, so what was going on in your mind? What you were finding really enjoyment or commitment? What was going on in your mind at that time?
So because of the way that he had trained my mind, I really did think, missing even one prayer was not acceptable. So I tried in between work. If I couldn't do it in work, I'd come back from work and make up those namazes because you can do that. So you carry a heavy burden on your shoulder when you commit to that submission. I was convinced that it was needed, and the only reason I wasn't finding peace, because I didn't, was because I wasn't doing things correctly.
So you were not finding peace in Islam anyway, but you thought you will do better, you will do more perfectly, you may later on.
Correct, because like I said, music, song, movies, art, any form of expression that comes naturally to a human being, for expressions of love, joy, sympathy, whatever, we're barred. So how could you have an existence? And I love music. I do.
You had so many doubts and you read it and all that, and still why you decide to submit for that ideology? Why you did not challenge and stay firm that no, unless you are 100% clear, I don't want to get in this.
Yeah, as you mentioned before, I don't think during the initial phases of my journey, I thought I was giving anything up. I felt I was taking something else on as a part of my spiritual journey. It was when, there was a refusal to go to a mandir or listen to a song or even, come accept that there was anything good in Hinduism. Like he absolutely refused to accept, even though he comes across as a very pluralistic person that loves India. He would come up with weird stories like, "Do you know what they do at the cremation grounds?" And I'm like, "No, usually guys go to the cremation grounds. I haven't gone to the cremation ground." And he's like, "Oh, they have this I forgot the words he used, but some sort of weird things like a death orgy where people dance around the pyre and they wait until the skulls start popping and then it's like bizarre things. And I hadn't been to a cremation ground. I'm like, that makes no sense. But he told these things with a lot of conviction, which leads me to believe that this is what is shared amongst their circles.
What else did he say that Hinduism is bad and idol worshipper and how many other things? Because I have seen typically that's what the Muslim in first stage they do is how bad is Hinduism. Then they introduce how good the Islam is. So how bad is Hinduism? What else he's told you?
Basically false idols. Like if I were to break your Saraswati idol, what would she do? She can't do anything. That's proof right there. And you're thinking, well, I don't expect my idol to do anything because that's a murti and the prana pratishtha is somewhere else. It's the energy that's going to do something later in terms of inspiration and action. But yeah, they absolutely hammer away at this whole idol worshiping. You worship stones, you worship sticks, and you worship animals kind of thing.
But then they are marketing only for Muhammad. I mean,
Yeah, but they don't admit that they worship Muhammad, even though they defend in a way that it comes across as worshiping him. They don't admit that he is worshipped. And the Hindus need to challenge things like the mazars and stuff like that. Those are absolutely forbidden in Islam. And the fact that India allows those things to be built is actually offensive to the core teachings of Islam. Even their prophet didn't allow any remembrance. The celebrations that some of the Muslims do in India are basically just to needle the Hindus. Haram would not be allowed in a Sunni country at all. Okay, building of mazars not allowed. Building of dargahs not allowed. These are absolutely against the fundamental tenets of worshiping anyone other than Allah.
so when you were following Islam in England and all that, and you were completely committed to it, And when your brother or some friend comes out and start poking you into it that you are on a wrong track, I'm sure you are in denial at that time. You didn't want to believe them.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I did have a lot of, because my brother also talked about takia and things like that, and he would bring some news and literature and cite those, and I used to say, "Oh, you're just biased against Muslims, you don't know. These are all fabricated stuff." But later as you delve deeper and deeper, you see that yes, there are instances of all of these in history and within the Quran, the history, the hadiths, and the sunnahs.
So in your case, you fall in the trap following Islam. You knew that there are many things you're not comfortable, but you submit to it.
Mhm.
But your brother keeps on poking and keep on questioning it. And slowly, you realize that, yes, you are in a trap which you did not want to be.
Mm, yeah.
And so finally, then tell us what happened finally, then, how you completely get out of it.
So slowly, I just started, having fewer and fewer interactions. I stopped going to India, and my friend at work, who had, first started prodding me on the questions on what is this bringing for you. I have to say, though, there is something to be said even for Hinduism by osmosis. Our mantras, our rituals, our pujas are extremely powerful because I truly believe it was Ma Durga who extricated me and gave me the strength to become vocal, to tell my story, and it is indescribable. But when you talk about really submitting to a love of a deity, um, I think I can vouch, at least from my personal experience, that I had gone so far away as not to have a single deity um, picture, any remembrance in my house during the time that I was a very strict adherent, very strict adherent. I stopped. I was never a vegetarian, so I did consume all types of meat, but I had stopped taking anything to do with pork. I would only eat halal branded food.
Oh my God.
That's how far I had gone. But it was Ma Durga that kept coming back and somehow presenting her aura around me, and a combination of Ma Durga and Sri Krishna. They were presence. Their presence somehow manifested continuously, even when I was so into the other faith. Um, Somehow in my dreams, in my recollections, in my fondest memory, they would come. And that's when I would realize a sense of peace.
Right.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow.
And I think that's what helped me extricate myself and find the strength to tell my story.
One important thing is all Hindu parents should know that they have to install Hindu values, teach Indian cultures, Hindu scriptures, and all that, like your parents did it. Because it was installed in you, ultimately, that Ma Durga and Lord Krishna, they came back to you to guide you to a path what you think is the right path right now.
Right. Yeah.
Well, this is a really moving story. So if I summarize it, the problem I see in actually I have seen in any marriage that the most marriage breaks because people compete with each other. Actually, in your married life with that Hindu guy, there was nothing wrong with it. You were both perfect, but still you just got into competitive mode. And somehow don't get into competitive mode. Just love the person, let it fly. The other mistake he did is that when you are falling, and let's say you were in a relationship, what he others, what that guy should have done, instead of giving you hard time, he should have given you double love and give you so much affections and all that. So even though you go to the gym and in relation with that Muslim guy, you would have come back to the right fold.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, he did not realize, most others don't realize. And I have noticed all 1300 cases I have seen, in most cases, that even though normal case, you will not fall for such trap. But these guys are always scanning. They are always scanning that who next they can convert. And they'll wait for your lowest point in your life. And then they are act like they come to rescue you. And when you are so low, so depressed, so gone, and such a low point of your life, and even some little things you really want to hold on to it like it's going to rescue you. And that's where, and it's unfortunate, he had no love for you. His own total interest was, unless you accept Islam, you are nothing, you are a Kafir. He wanted you to be a heaven-goer like himself. That's just sack, just sick mindset, sick ideology. Not to believe the other people around the world are of Bhagwan's or Allah's amanat. Unbelievable. So what last word you want to tell to all Hindu girls out there who may not have fall in love relationships, and then later on those who are already in love relationships? So
Yeah.
answer in two different sets. Yeah. First, to those who have never fall in love relationship, but they could potentially. So what warning you have for them?
Watch for the signs. Don't accept conversion at all, because it's not about loving you as a person or loving you as a soul. It's about another notch in their belt on their way to Jannah for themselves. It has nothing to do with saving you or providing something good for you. And if they're asking you to hate who you are and where you come from, that is not a good place to be. And you will turn into an enemy of yourself and an enemy of your society. It's not a good existence to be like that. And for those who are already in a relationship, if you feel the pull like I did from your Isht Devta, or from Sri Krishna, Mahadev, don't ignore it. These are very real. These manifestations, as much as people like to poo-poo them and discard them, I can tell you from my own experience, they are real. The calling is real. Latch onto them and use that as a strength to extricate yourself. There is no shame, there is no fear, and there is no hate. You are not leaving that ideology out of hate. You are leaving that ideology out of love for yourself and out of love for humanity. Because anything that is teaching you to look at others with a low, low status, that is not good for humanity.
Great. No, I think it's an excellent interview. Is there any other point or any message you want to give to the viewers?
Sure. I mean, for friends and families, when you see somebody in a situation, when you see the signs, speak up like my friend and my family did. And, don't be angry. Don't show your hurt. Be watchful and be honest, and talk about the things that you're seeing, the changes that you're seeing in the person, and always leave a door open. But be very watchful, because I didn't go to any extremism, of course. Everything was just around me. I didn't force anything on any of my family members. But other people may be swayed to the extreme that they feel the need to start bringing more people in. So be mindful of that.
No, I think you made excellent point that when you were converted, I'm glad your family did not kick you out or start hitting you. Instead of that, they give you love and slowly and slowly and slowly keep on making you realize that question whether you are on a right path. And it takes time to slowly make all the transitions are slow. There is nothing get done overnight. So I'm glad your family and friend did the right job, slowly and slowly helping you out. Well, thank you very much for your time. It's really, really bold of you to come out and speak out like that. Just one point personally for you, you have taken Shahadat. So legally bound, you are a Muslim. So make sure you go to a temple, mandir, something, formally document that you are converted back to Hinduism. This interview will serve, yes, you are 100% Hindu or only 50% Hindu.
So yes, I am 100% Hindu. I do not do any namaz. I refuse to eat anything halal. I refuse to entertain any conversations that belittles my uh, religion and my faith.
And that is Hinduism.
That is Hinduism, yes.
Great. So even though you are Sahadat, this interview will serve as your testimony that you are back to 100% Hindus, 100% Sanatis, 0% Islam. So legally, we need to make sure that that get documented. So thank you very much. We really appreciate it. Namaste. And sorry to hear that you got into trap, even though you being so intelligent and educated. But glad that you are back to the fold. Thank you very much.
Namaste.